Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Reignite Your Soul. I am very, very excited to be back here with you today. Laura Plahuta here. And so today we're going to be diving into the topic of dun, 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 working smarter, not harder, why slowing down works. And so this is going to be an episode for you if a few probably potentials. Obviously, you're here for a reason, but the first one would be your body is telling you, or maybe your mind is telling you that you are needing to slow down. You're on the verge of burnout all the time, or moving through cycles of it. Or the other option could be you try to slow down and it feels a little bit uncomfortable to slow down. So you're a little bit curious as to understand why that happens so that you can break that cycle, allow yourself to slow down and really feel your best as you're moving through life and create more intention in your life. So without further ado, we're going to get into this audio blog. So if you've ever felt like you're trying to do it all and still falling short, then this will be for you, like I said. So between balancing responsibilities, chasing goals, and working on personal growth, it can feel like we're stuck on a never-ending treadmill. But what if the secret to reaching our potential wasn't about pushing harder, but about slowing down and finding balance instead? So think about those moments when everything just kind of clicks. You know, when you're in the zone, creativity's flowing, and you're really getting things done while staying calm and confident. They feel really amazing when that happens, obviously. But we can also get stuck in those patterns that we think will lead to success, but they're actually keeping us in a cycle of burnout, and they can be kind of hard to break. So maybe you also have goals that's been kind of lingering in the back of your mind, something new or a dream you've been sitting on for a while that feels hard or even impossible to bring to completion. Maybe you've tried slowing down, but instead you end up binging Netflix, scrolling endlessly on your phone, or overloading yourself with work to avoid stress. Or maybe you know that what you're doing isn't working, but you've been stuck in the same patterns for so long that no new viable opportunities seem to be obvious. So if this sounds familiar, I want you to know it's not about lacking willpower. And these patterns are tied to deep-seated habits, beliefs, and the nervous system that is resistant to change. And so here's the thing. Transformation is not necessarily about doing more. There is a component that has us doing things because in order to create something new, we obviously need to do things, right? But it's about being more intentional with our time, slowing down and understanding so deeply the patterns that we're in so that we can feel safe to release them and then create something new. And so a little bit of a side note tangent here outside of the audio blog. I was just responding to an email from a client of mine and shared this with her. So I want to share it with you guys as well. She was noticing that she was in a cycle of procrastination. So she could see that she was procrastinating on things. And the advice that I gave her was to slow down so much in that procrastination and allow yourself to be fully with that part of you that is procrastinating, because underneath that procrastination, that behavior of procrastination, there's an emotion or a few emotions or many emotions that are wanting your attention, right? So when we procrastinate on things, a lot of the time it can be many things. It can be fear, it can be doubt, it can be insecurity. It can be so many things that are actually underlying underneath the surface in our inner worlds, right? And we're only seeing maybe the procrastination, and maybe we're like, oh, it's just because I don't have the willpower to do this, or maybe it's not meant for me, or whatever the mental reasons are to validate and make ourselves feel better for the procrastination that we're seeing that we're having. Whereas when we can start looking at what are the emotions that I'm experiencing underneath the surface, knowing that emotions are kind of like the fuel for our behaviors, and what is going on unconsciously in our bodies will have us playing out unconscious behaviors, right? And a lot of time those are self-sabotaging behaviors, right? So as soon as we start becoming conscious of the emotions that are in our body, we can then start breaking down that habit that we have in order to then create a new result. So we're going to explore more about that in here as well inside of this audio blog. So inside this specific audio blog, we're going to be touching on why struggling to slow down is normal and what's behind it, the science behind slowing down, unlocking transformation through awareness and rest, and then actionable steps to break free from these patterns. So the very first one that we're going to dive into. Also, if you guys have any questions that pop up as you're listening to this, then please feel free to write them down, put them in the comments, and we can always do more episodes answering questions. Or if there's anything you want to share, feel free to share what you want to share as well. So why is it hard to slow down and how to change that? So slowing down feels like it should be easy, right? But for many of us, it's anything but. If you've ever tried to relax only to feel restless, maybe distracted, or even maybe guilty, then you're definitely not alone. And this struggle is deeply rooted in how we're conditioned and the world that we live in. So why we struggle to pause, right? So the pressure to stay busy often starts in childhood. Hard work and productivity are often celebrated, whether it's excelling in school, dominating activities, or just staying occupied. Another clue to our own patterning we hold is to think back to how active our parents were as kids, and also kind of tuning into what you remember from your childhood. What was their lifestyle like? And how is their health today? Remembering that our outer world can be an incredible mirror to give us the clues into who we are, why we are the way that we are, and how to also unlearn some of those patterns that we've picked up and continued carrying through. And sometimes it's as simple of doing the opposite. So eventually we can find our happy middle ground. And these are some of the many things from our childhood and our upbringing that drives us to constantly achieve. And obviously there are many other parts likely that are unique to each one of us in our pasts. So further exploration is always needed. Another thing that I found very interesting on my own self-exploration journey was that many immigrant families among my own, this pressure to achieve runs even deeper, and hard work and nonstop productivity were often a necessity for their survival, shaped by war, conflict, or scarcity. And rest wasn't a choice, right? It was a luxury that they couldn't afford. And even in times when they may have been physically resting, their minds were worrying about their safety, which activates the nervous system just as much as a physical threat. And these survival patterns inherently have been passed down through generations, creating a nervous system wired for chronic stress and constant activity, right? So for an example, so for me, my grandparents on my dad's side were from Austria, and they came over after the war. And when they came over here, I mean, they came over with a fork, a spoon, and they didn't even know the language, right? So they came over and they had to build up their lives from basically nothing. And in that, there was a lot of scarcity, right? When you don't have things, you have to work so hard, and it's fueled by fear. Whereas a lot of us now are in a different position, and many of us are still fueled by fear. I mean, it still does get things done. However, it does take a toll on our nervous systems and on our physical bodies and our physical health. So we can start shifting our patterns and our behaviors to come from a place of more of an abundant place, which we can get into more. If that doesn't really make sense, that's okay. From like a higher vibrational place, higher vibrational emotions that are driving this little vehicle that we have here in our bodies, moving them forward. So if this kind of passes down generations, like to my father, and he then corrects it a little bit more, and then to us, and then we get to then shift things, and then it kind of over generations. And this is what when we hear the term generational trauma, this is kind of how it gets passed down. But every generation has the desire to do better than the past, right? So things that they didn't quite enjoy in their own experience, they will naturally then want to make it better for the next generation. So over time, things keep getting better and better and better, and we all see different things. So that is big because if you look back at your family and where they kind of came from, you can probably get a lot of clues as to why your nervous system or your behaviors are the way that they are. So to continue on, that's kind of like the ancestral type piece in it. But then also, depending on our upbringing of our parent and our parents' upbringing, if either was raised in an abusive household, whether mentally, physically, emotionally, or sexually, your home environment wasn't safe. So your brain becomes hardwired to prioritize protection and safety and not to trust others, which makes healing from these patterns even more challenging. And it takes a lot of work and self-awareness to break free from these ingrained patterns and find a healthier balance in our lives. But it's not all about the past, right? Our present circumstances, our relationships and environments also play a significant role in shaping our health today. And we're also in present day, we're constantly bombarded with societal expectations, cultural norms and media messages that can influence how we view ourselves and what we believe is expected of us. And these external factors can create pressure to conform, perform, or even compete with others. And it's important to recognize these external influences and decipher if they align with our own values and our goals for our personal health, right? We must learn to set boundaries, to prioritize our well-being before trying to please others or meet unrealistic expectations. And sometimes this means learning to say no, taking breaks when needed, and seeking support from trusted individuals who have our best interests at heart. And in a world that glorifies busyness and productivity, it's so crucial to remind ourselves that rest is not only necessary, but it's essential for our overall health and our well-being. It allows us to recharge, to reset, and rejuvenate as a whole, mentally, physically, energetically, emotionally, and spiritually. So let go of the guilt associated with taking time for yourself and embrace self-care as an essential part of your journey toward a healthier life. Remember, healing is not a linear process and it looks different for everyone. And it's okay to have setbacks or difficult days. And what matters is that we keep working toward finding the balance and prioritizing our own health and happiness and surrounding ourselves with positive influences. And so there's obviously many reasons why we do that. So I'd encourage you to kind of tune into your own experience and see what comes up for you and what resonates for you. So now touching on the science behind slowing down, right? Unlocking transformation through awareness and rest. Slowing down isn't intended for us to do nothing per se, right? It's not like slowing down and doing nothing, but keeping our inner world going at the same rate that it's at is going to actually create any changes, right? So it's, yes, slowing our physical body down, but then there are practices that we need to put in place to then slow down our inner world as well, so that we can then actually get into this place where we're resting, where we're healing, and we have more ability to be self-aware with ourselves and to create the changes that we actually want to live the lives that we're wanting. And so as you can see, humans are very complex, right? So this isn't like a one path fits all for everybody. It's really like there's a brief roadmap, but it's up to us individually to explore why we are the way that we are, really acknowledge and accept the patterns and behaviors that we have, both the internal patterns, the thoughts and the emotional patterns, as well as our behaviors that we have as well. And then through that, we can then create change, right? We're truly limitless with what we can do. So when it comes to us slowing down, we slow our physical bodies down. It's intended for us to create space for awareness, processing, reflection, and intentional action. And science confirms that these practices are essential for productivity, work-life balance, and sustainable growth. And additionally, and very importantly, our mind and body need to rest, to heal, to repair, and really function at its best. So here's why rest and awareness are so powerful for transformation. And guys, those of you who know me, I love the sciencey type stuff. When we think about our external world, we've been very conditioned to be very aware of what's in our external world. We all know that this is, I'm looking at a car out the window, right? A tree, But when we go into our internal world, if we haven't had a sciencey type background where we've learned biology and stuff like that, we don't even know what's in these vessels, right? And that's only on a physical level. We haven't learned what's necessarily on the energetic level, the emotional level, the spiritual level, the physical level, the mental level, like how our internal worlds operate, right? And for me, I think that it's just so huge, because when we know how to operate this, we can do so much amazing things in our external world. So number one for this one, why rest and awareness are so powerful for transformation. So this is where it's going to get a little bit nerdy. So bear with me here if you're not really a sciencey person or into this stuff. However, I will say that it will change your life when you understand this. So you may have to listen to this a few times. So we touched on this a little bit more in detail in the last article, but let's go into it again because it's so important. So our nervous system have two main modes, right? We have our fight or flight response. So this is our sympathetic nervous system. And then we have the rest and digest mode. I also like to add in the heal and grow. And this is the parasympathetic nervous system. So you know how earlier I shared about our ancestors' minds worrying, and the same goes for us, right? Humans are apparently found to be the only species that can create stress hormones through thought alone, right? So that means that we don't actually have to be in a physically unsafe environment. We can create an unsafe environment that our mind believes we are unsafe based off of the thoughts that we're experiencing, right? So depending on our ancestral conditioning, our conditioning, we can be caught in this body that has all of these worrisome or survival-based thoughts that keep us operating in a survival state. How crazy is that? Like, just let that sink in. And it's going to get even more interesting once we dive into this a little bit more. So why is this? So it's because we have the ability to imagine scenarios, right? So both good and bad. And when our minds focus on these potential stresses, it puts us into that fight or flight mode. And in this mode, our bodies shut down systems such as digestion, our immune response, in order to prioritize survival responses, right? If you imagine if we were in a physically unsafe environment where there was, for example, a bear, right? Our body doesn't need to worry about digesting food, doesn't need to worry about our immune response. There's many other ones that we'll get into as well, right? We don't need to worry about having babies, right? So conception issues. We don't need to worry about, I can't think of any other ones off the top of my head, but we'll get into more of them in a little bit. But imagine, right? You just don't need them. So our body is so intelligent, it shuts those processes down so that it can reshift that energy into something that's going to be useful in that moment, right? And so if we find ourselves worrying a lot or feeling fearful, it will activate our sympathetic nervous system, releasing the stress hormones, which chronically keeps us in the go, go, go mode, right? So as we dive a little bit deeper into that, so a little bit deeper into our physical way our body reacts when we're in fight or flight mode. So our heart rate increases, right? Our blood pressure rises. Our muscles tense up in anticipation for needing to either fight or flight, right? To run away from things. And along with these, our bodies are in survival mode, right? So it recognizes that there are certain human functions and processes that are not a top priority. So like I said, digestion, immune system, ability to conceive, our sleep, right? If sleep patterns. If there's a bear, you don't need to worry about sleeping, right? Even our ability to think long-term and make long-term plans, right? All of these things are just simply not needed. And so our bodies believe that we're in a dangerous situation. So it's very intelligently shuts these things down. And so just to pause right there, how is this landing for everyone? I know it can be a little bit dense. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. So now, how do we then shift from our nervous system back into that rest or digest mode or parasympathetic nervous system after it has been conditioned to be here and maybe has been here chronically for quite some time? Well, to begin, we need to become aware of our thoughts and our emotions that are triggering our sympathetic response, and also what the sympathetic response feels like in our body, right? So that we can actually recognize it. So what does stress feel like in the body and how to recognize it? Stress can manifest physically in a variety of ways, and it may feel like tension or tightness in the chest, neck, or shoulders. It can also present as a racing heart, shortness of breath, or stomach discomfort. Right? If you ever, I know I used to struggle a lot with irritable bowel syndrome. And I mean, the doctor offered me some Pantaloc, which is not helpful. And really what I needed was things to cope with my stress, right? And to learn ways of reworking my thought patterns and my emotional patterns inside so that I could have better health experience, right? So we may also experience headaches, fatigue, or difficulty sleeping. And it's important to pay attention to these physical cues and recognize them as signs of stress. And by becoming aware of our body's response to stress, we can start to identify triggers and take steps to manage them, right? So this is where practices like mindfulness and meditation can greatly help us tune in with ourselves and observe any patterns or triggers for stress and anxiety. And we can also incorporate more relaxation techniques into our daily routine, such as deep breathing exercises, yoga, or even taking a walk in nature. These activities help activate the parasympathetic nervous system and promote a sense of calmness and balance within the body. So additionally, incorporating self-care practices such as getting enough sleep, staying hydrated, eating nourishing foods, they can also support our overall well-being and help regulate our nervous system. So it's important to prioritize these self-care practices and make them a regular part of our routine. And going a little bit deeper than self-care to support healing from the internal patterns, you can try talking to a therapist, a counselor, hiring a coach, trying body-based healing techniques such as emotional clearing or the spiral to help you unlearn these patterns and begin learning new ways of being that support your nervous system. And so let's flip the scale now. So what does a balanced and healthy nervous system look like, right? So how will you know when your nervous system is actually in a regulated state? So some signs of a balanced nervous system include feeling calm and centered, being able to handle stressors without becoming overwhelmed, having a good sleep cycle, and experiencing healthy digestion. And sometimes our health and lifestyle changes can feel like a huge uphill battle. However, I'd love to invite you to see it as more of an adventure, right? So instead of being like, oh my gosh, I have such a long way to go, like see it as like, oh wow, okay, awesome. Thank you, body, for showing me all of these things that are out of whack. I've got some work to do and I'm up for the challenge and ready to go on a journey to be able to tackle these things so that I can feel better, right? Because taking care of our nervous system is not just about managing stress and anxiety in the moment, but it's also about building resilience for the future, right? And by investing time and effort into our well-being now, we're really setting ourselves up for a healthier and more balanced life in the long run. And then you get to pass that new set of patterns to your children and your grandchildren, which is even more rewarding. It really is that each generation then gets to experience something better and better for themselves. So that's touching on the nervous system. So the other big benefit of rest and stuff like that. So once our nervous system is in a relaxed state, in the rest and digest per se, yes, it has to do with personal growth and also healing, but also creativity and problem solving skills. Who here believes that they are not a creative person? I used to believe that I wasn't a creative person, which was insane because it was just that my nervous system was always in a state of fight or flight. And in that state, creativity and problem solving skills and it's just not prioritized, you know? And so really understanding that, I always looked up to people that were creative. I was like, oh, wow, I wish I could be more creative, you know? And here I am now feeling the way that I am now. So it's definitely possible for all of us to shift into this. But creativity and problem solving helps so much in entrepreneurship, right? In life in general, but in entrepreneurship specifically, right? So when we are in that state, you may have noticed that some of your best ideas and solutions come to you when you're not actively trying to come up with ideas, right? I like to think of it as like this, like God's giving you this like download of information, right? And that's where then we then get to act on these things to then bring it to fruition. And when we're feeling confident and calm and aligned, we then actually take the ideas and we follow through on them, right? Because we believe in ourselves and we know that we are capable of bringing whatever that download was into this physical realm, right? So when we slow down, we give ourselves time to rest. Our nervous system shifts into rest and digest mode. And it's not only for physical repair, right, but also plays that key role in creativity and problem solving. So when we're calm, our brains have the space to process information, it makes new neural connections, and it also thinks more clearly. Slowing down allows the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain responsible for complex thinking and creativity, to work at its best. And by intentionally creating moments of rest and awareness, we can then regulate our nervous systems and tap into deeper levels of insight, helping us to solve problems and think outside of the box with greater ease. And so if you're feeling stuck or uninspired, your transformation may begin simply by slowing yourself down. As when we allow ourselves to slow down, we open ourselves up to taking a closer look at our role in creating the life that we experience, which takes us into number 3. So number 3 is awareness unlocks change. And this is kind of goes back to what I was sharing about the response that I had sent back to my client about slowing down, about procrastination, right? When we slow down and then we have that sense of self-awareness, right, which doesn't come in a fight or flight state, then it unlocks change. So when we slow down, we give ourselves the space to notice what's really going on beneath the surface, right? So think about it. How often do you feel like you're just rushing around and on autopilot? And in that rush, it's easy to miss the patterns holding us back. When we're focusing on the outside world, we're not focusing necessarily on the inside world. And that's where we can really take responsibility and create changes that we want. So when we pause and those patterns really start to come into focus and we allow ourselves, we give ourselves permission to really focus on those patterns that we have that are holding us back without feeling shame, like we shouldn't have them for some reason, without this whole perfectionist, like, oh, I'm a perfect being and I don't have any work to do. No, every human being has work to do, and it doesn't make us less of a human being because we have patterns to work on, right? It's normal. It's normal for humans to do this and to have patterns that they want to change and shift. And so slowing down helps us to notice those habits that no longer serve us. For instance, let's say you're feeling uncomfortable or stressed. Do you find yourself instinctively reaching for your phone to scroll through social media like crazy? Or maybe you binge watch a show to avoid thinking about what's really bothering you. Maybe it's food, drugs, plant medicines, alcohol, sugar, sex, porn, video games, any other type of distraction, really. There's even a point in my healing journey, or my conscious kind of self-discovery journey, where I was using meditation unconsciously to numb myself from certain experiences that I was having. Right? So it could be absolutely anything. So tuning into what you go to when you're feeling stressed. And so when we slow down and become aware of these habits without shame, right? Without shame, we can start to make changes that lead us toward a more fulfilling life. So it's important to note that becoming aware is not about judging ourselves for our habits or behaviors. It's about simply noticing them without judgment. And this allows us to approach change from a place of self-compassion and understanding rather than shame and criticism. And when we approach change from a place of self-love and acceptance, it becomes much easier to make sustainable changes in our lives. And becoming aware also allows us to see the bigger picture, right? We start to understand how our thoughts, actions, and habits are connected and how they shape our experiences. And this awareness empowers us to take control of our lives and make conscious choices that align with our values and goals. So next time you catch yourself on autopilot, try slowing down and becoming aware of your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, noticing any patterns or habits that may be holding you back from living your best life. And remember to approach this process with kindness toward yourself and also toward others, because it can be very easy to judge other people for being in patterns that we can clearly see that they're in. However, we all have blind spots, and it can be very easy to point at other people's blind spots. And instead, when we just tune in and focus on our own blind spots and becoming aware of our own blind spots, then we can then move through that. And we grow a lot more by focusing on ourselves instead of focusing on everybody else and trying to force other people into growth, right? Because how many times does family or friends and stuff just drive you up the wall because they're not making the changes that they want, right? But that's out of our control. So it's really about choosing the one that we know we have control around, which is ourselves, our patterns, and creating that change. And you never know what that can inspire in your friends and family without even trying, right? Then you get to then pass on tools that helped you along with to those people that you care about, which may then prompt change within them without you even trying or having to push people, right? It's more of an organic flow. And so when we do this, it really unlocks the door to change, right? But it's a journey that requires patience, self-love, and compassion along the way. And this is where the real work begins. And I always massively celebrate clients who come through our doors, whether in person or online, who are constantly unraveling, right? Because life is more of an unlearning and then we learn, right? We can't just keep learning. We need to unlearn some things so that we can learn some new things that are going to bring us in a new direction. Right? But oh my gosh, is this journey just so ever worth it? You're going to look back on yourself and just be like, wow, I cannot believe the person I've become in this process. It's incredible. Right? And so seeing clients making the positive change in their lives, whether it's improving their relationships, finding their passions, or simply feeling more happier, more fulfilled, it's one of the most rewarding parts of what we do here at Reignite Your Soul. And I truly believe that anyone can experience this transformation if they are willing to become aware and stay consistent with the journey. And I always say, if you stayed consistent for the next 5 years, imagine where you would be. So I invite you to start your own journey toward awareness today and take some time to slow down, reflect, and become aware of what truly matters to you. And remember to approach this process with warmth and compassion for yourself, because you deserve to live a life that aligns with your values and brings you true joy and fulfillment. So let's go make it happen together. And why not take the first step toward a more fulfilling journey? by joining our community of like-minded individuals. We have events coming up. We've got some here in Peterborough. We've got some happening online coming up. So if you want to join us, then we would love to have you. And we can't wait to welcome you into the community. And you can also go out into your community and just find different places where you feel comfortable. I think that's the biggest thing with connecting with community. It's like when they're into growth and into this stuff, like just trust your intuition with where you go. And there may be some initial fear in those first initial steps, but trust that you're safe, right? And become aware of those patterns of where you're holding yourself back from diving into new environments with new people who are also on this journey. Because when we link arms, like it's truly incredible when you surround yourself with people who are also on the same growth journey, like what can unfold from that. It's absolutely incredible. So some actionable steps to break free. So slowing down to speed up may feel counterintuitive, but it's the key to creating lasting change that involves healing and becoming the version of yourself you know deep inside you're capable of being, and allowing you to finally balance your ambition, which is far from a bad thing, with your well-being for a sustainable living and overall enjoyment of life. And so we have a few simple call to actions for you this week. The first one is to create a morning mindfulness routine. So this could be as simple as setting aside 10 minutes each morning to sit in silence, focus on your breath, and set intentions for the day ahead. And you'll be amazed at how this small, tiny little practice can have a huge impact on your overall well-being. And number 2 is if you're wanting to embark on a holistic healing journey and would love our team's support and guidance, we would love to invite you to book what's called a holistic living consultation. And on these 45-minute consultation calls, you can share more about what's happening for you specifically, and we can make suggestions and provide you some support so you can take those next few steps feeling held and supported with where you're headed. And number 3, if you're someone who likes diving into transformation head first and you want to accelerate your growth, I'd love to invite you to apply for the Spiral, which is our 10-session emotional clearing program where you can either work one-to-one with our coaches or in a small group of 4-to-1 with myself to begin unraveling your unique conditioning, your emotional patterning, keeping you feeling stuck, maybe in a fight or flight response with an activated nervous system, and wherever you're feeling stuck, whether that's with your health, personally, professionally, or in your relationships. And you can book an exploratory call here, and we can explore whether this program is a good fit for you and a great place for you to start. So whatever option you choose, know we are here for you and rooting for you and your journey toward holistic well-being. And remember that small steps can lead to big changes. So don't underestimate the power of taking that first step towards a more balanced and fulfilling life. Know that we believe in you. Keep nurturing yourself and finding joy in the journey. And we will see you next week on the next episode. Oh, and don't forget to share this episode with somebody who needs to hear its message and is craving sustainable transformation so that they can break free from the chaos, regain peace, and live a life of freedom and fulfillment. Until next time, my friends, ciao for now. Sending you big love.